Hi, my name is Mark Biernot, and I'm a monetary economist. In this video, I want to talk about the Russian ruble and why its downfall will bring the collapse of the current rendition of Russia, and how this reformatting actually will be a positive thing for Russians and the world. But first, I got to say, the Russians don't even understand what's coming. The Russian people are all like, well, we are Russian, we can do it, we can endure. They have no idea. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of history of the Russian ruble. Then I'm going to talk about what is money and interest, and also what the price of the ruble is telling us. And lastly, I'm going to talk about toxic assets and what are going to lead to the downfall of the Russian ruble. So first, let's start with the history. The history of the Russian ruble was born in conflict, okay? It was born in the 1300s when there was this guy called Ivan the First, Ivan Kalita, Ivan Moneybags. He was stealing from the tax collection of the people of Russia, of Muscova. And there was the Mongol overlords, and he wanted to throw off the yoke of the Golden Horde. So he was stealing from the taxes and extracting heavy taxations. He was able to levy an army and create a small state, or, principality. And he did that through extraction, and there was the birth of the ruble. So it was born in this type of conflict and centralization and a little bit shady history. Now, I'm going to skip to the modern age, the 17th and 18th centuries, all very rocky road for the ruble. And you see Russia was always lagging behind other countries, that it is still today. I mean, if you look at Russia, you really want to know, is it wealthy? It's probably the poorest country in all the world if you take landmass and GDP. If you take GDP divided by landmass, right? By total area, the most inefficient country in the world by that metrics. But let's go forward to better times. 1898, Russia joined the League of Nations and the Family of Nations, and went on the international gold standard. An international classic gold standard means I take a ruble, or I take and bring it to the bank, and they'll give me some gold for it. I take a lot of rubles, they'll give me a bag of gold. You can do this anywhere in the world. International gold standard requires a lot of coordination among the community. And there was a lot of sterilization of the currencies going on and a lot of cheating going on between the countries. It all went sideways in 1914, so it's a very brief time, but it was a lot of positive things coming from the international gold standard as long as all the countries and participants were on the up and up. Then you had something called, the Soviet ruble, SUR, and it's been replaced, obviously, by the Russian ruble, the ticker RUB. The ticker is very important. We're going to talk about that. And in 1998, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, it was replaced with the Russian ruble, and then they had to eventually revalue the currency. I've got all this currency somewhere, and I was actually selling it on eBay just as a novelty item. But they revalued it 1,000 to 1 because it kept on being devalued. It was a time of horrible chaos and panic in Russia and negative economic growth. So let's go forward and say the Russian ruble today is about, let's call it a penny to the dollar. Well, the Russians didn't like referencing everything to the dollars, so they tried to tell the story that we are on the gold standard. And they said, we'll take 5,000 rubles, we'll give you a gram of gold. People all over, Russian repeaters, started saying, oh, Russia's on the gold standard, we're safe, the ruble's strong. This is untrue, because a gram of gold is worth about $77 today. 5,000 rubles is worth 53. So why wouldn't you just take rubles all day long and then cash it into gold? It's because it's fake, it's lie, it's not true. It's a farce. Everything to do with the Russian ruble is untrue. The capital controls, the high interest rates. So get it through. The Russians are not on the gold standards. BRICS is not going to help them. The digital currency is not going to help them. It's all smoke and mirrors. And the acid test is, look it up. The Russians claim a gold standard of 5,000 rubles to 1 gram of gold. And 1 gram of gold is worth $77, and 5,000 ruble is worth $54, $53. So why not, again, just make profit all day long and be the richest and leverage that and be the richest person in the world? So it's fake. And that gets me to the point of what is money? Money is whatever people believe money to be and have confidence in. And the acid test for that is, would you personally put your life savings into the Russian ruble? Me? I'm going to put it in T-bills and the dollar. No matter what you guys say about the debt and everything, it's another conversation. I'm going to put it in T-bills and the dollar. But would you put it into the ruble? So Ruble has now become more like a local currency mandated by law, and the Russians really are trying to, anybody, if they haven't escaped, they try to put it in crypto or some hard currency, some real currency like the euro, the Swiss franc, or the dollar, or the British pound. That's what they consider real currency in Russia. They don't consider the ruble real currency. And we can go back to that because, again, it's about confidence. So currency and money is something that is universally accepted as a medium of exchange. And the ruble is not universally accepted. I wouldn't take it, would you? It's only accepted by law because they have to take it. I would take the dollar, and, like in Africa, in the South America, I travel all over the world. They don't mind I pay in dollars, but they would go, no, yeah, to the ruble, okay? So the ruble isn't real money. Now let's talk about interest rates, and I'm getting to the point of why it's going to collapse. Okay, the interest rate theory, there is at 16%. The interest rate theory again is the natural rate of interest, or the expected return on capital, should match the interest rate. So if naturally most expected real rate of return on capital is 7% around the world, and you've got 16% interest rates, you're basically crushing any investment or consumption. And you're running your economy on just the government, jettisoning the Galileo 7 fuel pack and just making a big streak across the sky while everybody at the IMF is congratulating them. Dmitry Rushakov at the IMF or whoever is congratulating them for a little bit of growth because they're just spending everything on government, flamethrowers or whatever they're investing in. But real consumption, like let's say educational toys or real investment, let's say 3D printers, are not really a component of that growth because it's steeply negative. Okay, so the expected profit rate of capital in Russia in a free market is deeply negative. I would put it at negative 10%, and the interest rate is up here at 16%. That is a major issue. If you read Ludwig van Mises or F.A. Hayek, two Austrian economists I highly recommend. When the natural rate of interest and the bank rate of interest is different, the artificial bank rate, it creates a divergence throughout the whole economy. Why is this important? Going back to what money is. Money is the second half of every transaction. Get it? Money is the second half of every transaction. When I buy potatoes at the store, I don't trade corn for potatoes. I trade money for potatoes. When I buy a watch, I trade money for a watch. It's the second half of every transaction through the whole world. So if you have a systemic toxicity in money, it's going to have a massive ripple effect through the whole economy. Unlike other goods, like potatoes or apples, it's cleared through supply and demand. Money, if it's mispriced, if the market for potatoes, if I'm offering $20 a pound for my potatoes, nobody's going to clear that market. So it's naturally through the supply and demand workings are going to clear at the proper price. But if money is not priced correctly, if money is false, like the ruble is, it's going to have an effect that will have magnitudes on every single market across the board. Unlike the market of potatoes, which will be just a disaster in the potato market. So money being the second half of every transaction and the natural rate of interest being a divergent based on whether it's Swedish economics or Austrian economics. And I know the new consensus estimates the natural rate of interest in a different way, but they're incorrect. They're naturally estimating it on a price stabilizing rate. So if this creates a systemic effect to the economy, you have something called a toxic asset. In the 2008 crisis, the only reason that was a crisis was not from the overvaluations, but because there were toxic assets in there. price is nothing more than an intertemporal valuation. It's through time. It's through the future and the present. You take into effect, what do I think? So I buy a house. I'm not only saying, do I want utility out of this house today, but what is the value to me and other people in the future? It's an intertemporal price. You guys can look up what intertemporal means. It's taking into account the present and the future. So if the intertemporal price of money and credit, the interest rate, is incorrect, just like in the potato market, there's going to be a collapse in the potato market if I'm charging $20 a pound for my potatoes. Well, it's going to be across every single market. It's toxic. It's not like in 2008 we had toxic mortgage backs because the rating agencies deceived, right? They were writing incorrect valuations. The money market is toxic across all markets, and that's the ruble. Now, here's the kicker. The tape tells all. Being a stockbroker from the old days, I understand what that means. That means that the trend is your friend. And the trend of the ruble is going down. It tells everything. It takes into the account the future and the present because people are forward-looking and they prefer present goods over future, but they consider the future when valuing a price. And you have to think about that. So the trend of the ruble is strictly going down, and the trend is your friend. So the tape is telling me that the ruble is toxic. If it goes beyond under a penny, no matter what kind of capital controls and magic that they do, this black magic that the cursed, Russian economy is under, it's still going to have an effect on everybody. It's still going to bring the ruble down. And this collapse of the ruble is so significant, the IMF, the World Bank, the Russian people don't see it coming because you never see the next crisis coming. They're going to be pumping out some aggregate number that is like kind of steady up or down. But the tape tells all. The trend of the ruble is down. You can make the argument about Ukraine. The Ukrainian hryvnia is down. It is down, but there's a difference. Ukraine will be welcomed into as an honored guest into the community of nations as we want to make the world a better place and improve the world. After this geopolitical event, a lot of capital will flow into Ukraine, including from Russia, as reparations. And it will be welcomed with open markets and open arms, and a lot of charities and organizations in the whole world with compassion and love will help Ukraine. And Ukraine will recover. Russia, if it exists in its geographical form, which I question, will have a taint, and they'll be scrambling because the number one criteria for economic growth and prosperity is free markets and free trade, Adam Smith. And they are blocked from that now. Don't believe they're bluffing. They're bluff. Their ruble is going down. They can't sustain it at its current level. If they could sustain it at the market level, there would be no need for capital controls or no need to distort the interest rate. And that's what it is. So the ruble, through the systemic effect of toxic markets across all boards, will take the Russian economy back to the Stone Age. And the Russian people who are saying, we're a Russian and we are tough, you think it's bad now in Russia and you're just it's going to the Stone Age. And again, I'm somebody who loves all people of the world and want to make the world a better place. I'm just speaking from an investor, economic, monetary economist standpoint. The Stone Age is coming back to Russia, and it doesn't look great, and it's because only the ruble can have such a massive effect on the economy because it's money, the second half of every transaction. My name is Mark Biernot, and I'm a monetary economist. Have a great day. Thank you very much.